Killing Joke is the newest DC animated film and is directed by Sam Liu and is based on one of the most popular graphic novels of the 1980s, The Killing Joke, by Alan Moore and Brian Boland. Now, this is going to be a little different for this video because instead of this, I don't usually talk about these animated direct-to-video flicks, but this is a special occasion because this film had a one-night theatrical release here in town, and I decided to go check it out with a friend of mine. Now, a little backstory. Now, growing up, as you can see behind me, I grew up with this animated series right here, and for a while, this series right here is the reason that brought me into Batman in the first place. The animated series had brought me into the character of Batman in such a really unique way with its architectural visuals, with its gothic kind of film noir setting, and it's really awesome casting from Kevin Conroy and Mr. Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill, playing the Joker. And this show growing up was one of the few shows that got me so much in the character of Batman that I started going crazy about him. You know, that's when I actually started getting more into the live action films and actually trying to look more into some of the other comic books that the movies are based off of. And the character of Batman alone has always been one of my favorite superheroes of all time. And as you can see, I'm quite a huge fan of the character. And when I was hearing about this film coming out, I heard that it was a different kind of story because, for those of you that don't know, the original Killing Joke story was made in 1988, where it was basically a darker telling of the Joker that we hadn't seen before, where you're starting to get hints of what his origin was before he became who he was. And a friend of mine named Brian has the graphic novel. I've read probably the few first pages, but I've never read the graphic novel itself. But when I was hearing about this film coming out, it really got me pumped. It really got me excited because, first of all, this is the first animated Batman movie that's R-rated. And besides Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, we have never had a R-rated Batman film at all. And so you can tell this was a big deal for moviegoers and also comic book fans. What also got me curious was the fact that not only was it R-rated and was also going to be released as a one-night theatrical showing, but they also brought back the two of my favorite actors from the animated series. You had Kevin Conroy as Batman coming back, and you also had Mark Hamill coming back as the Joker. And as you can also see behind me, that they also reprised the roles in the Arkham Asylum games, which are some of my favorite games on the Xbox. And for this film, what I've been hearing, the graphic novel itself is not really that long. So to help enhance the pacing of the film and to have the runtime cleared up, they added a backstory to the film that made the film run even longer. Basically, you have Barbara Gordon trying to stop this fire that's happening, and you start to discover that there's this person called Paris that is a criminal who's working for his uncle under this mafia family. He has the hots for Batgirl and wants her in such a really sick way. You start to dive into this plot where you're starting to see the relationship between Barbara Gordon and Batman, because the movie did spark a lot of controversy with people that I know that have read the graphic novel, and they've said that this backstory this prologue that they include for the movie does feel out of place for them, and I can see where they're coming from. But honestly, though, I actually liked what they did with this, because to me, and I know I'm probably going to get people are going to disagree with me on this, and that's fine. I liked how you start to see the relationship of Barbara and Batgirl and Batman enhance their relationship, and how basically it's a tale of you keep your friends close but keep your enemies closer kind of story, and you do start to delve in of what they're going with, and how pretty much what happens later in the film has a huge impact of how it enhances the tone, how it enhances the story. So I do commend them for at least trying to do something a little different than having to just basically be a straight up verbatim from the graphic novel. Because, and don't get me wrong, I like when stories are adapted from the source material, right? But you gotta think, would you rather see a straight up shot for shot adaptation of a graphic novel that would see the filmmakers give the script to their actors, be like, all right, here's your script, it's verbatim from the book? To me, it feels like if you're just doing something that's just shot for shot from the source material, it can be boring. And so I commend the film for at least adding a new layer to the story without having to overdo it. And so as the movie goes on, you start to see that there's this, how Barbara Gordon progresses throughout it, and how she wants to stick by Batman, but Batman holds her back because you can see the fear that Batman has with Barbara Gordon, because with Batgirl, because he's afraid that no matter that, the more that she sticks with him, the more risk that she takes, and I can really see that. I can really buy of that happening. So as the movie goes on, you also start to get into this, as you see in the trailers, you see a really dark story involving the Joker that involves Batman going to look for him, and something very tragic happens that causes a strain with him, and it really pushes his limits. So here are my pros for the movie. I love all the performances in this film. The two that steal the most show, of course, is Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill as the Joker. Kevin Conroy, to me, will always be my favorite voice for Batman, because he captures not only the very deep and menacing voice, but he also captures the more, like, you can also feel his presence even when you hear his voice in the shadows, and he has that very calm nerve to him. And, of course, we got to talk about Mark Hamill. Who would have thought that, I mean, even going back to the animated series, that a guy who's played Luke Skywalker has played the Joker. This, to me, is probably the best performance, in my opinion, this is the best performance he has done as the Joker that I have ever seen. He nailed it, like, completely perfect. You're starting to see, because I gotta tell you, this is the kind of Joker that you'll see that you probably won't ever see again as an animated film ever again, because this is the kind of Joker that goes beyond of what you see in the video games and in the animated series. Like, you can really dive into the psychological aspect of him really well, and you can also see him have that very, where you think he's crazy, but where you think he's either, actually telling the truth, or if he's actually really just, a nut. This is probably where it probably takes me multiple viewings of watching this, where this is kind of where I kind of question the film. There are things that happen that the Joker does that are ambiguous to some people, because there are certain parts where you can't tell if it's really implied if he does certain actions, if he does certain things to the characters in the movie. And what I also enjoy too the most is I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I really love the animation they have for this movie, like for this film, because I love the grainy look that they have, especially when you see the later parts of the movie where it has like that really cool film noir look. And I actually liked how they kind of mix a little bit of computer generated effects with the backdrops and everything. I actually thought that was really stunning in some parts. And I also enjoyed the music too. It really builds you in that kind of atmosphere where it's really like dark and gothic, the kind of setting that reminds me so much of the animated series. The closest you get to like a follow-up to the animated series in years, and I think that this one really holds its ground by putting you in that mindset of going back, but by putting you into a more mature kind of, in a more darker setting where you're seeing the characters unfold and the darkness behind of what the Joker's doing. So I really commend the film for that a lot. Also love some of the other performances too. I thought Tara Strong did a pretty good job as Barbara. There are a couple parts in the movie where I thought she was a little whiny, but for the most part, I enjoyed her performance really well, and I thought that she really captures the really complex character of Barbara, and how she is basically just trying to, to me, she loves Batman. Like, she has a really strong relationship with Batman that she doesn't want to let go, because she looks at her because she's always stood by his side for a long time, and you really buy the relationship with both of them together, and it really folds the movie in so many ways for me. Now, and I also thought that there are some funny parts in the movie too, where sometimes when Batman would beat up somebody, it would have a funny quip here and there, or when the Joker says something hilarious. The humor. The movie does have a good mix of humor as well. Even though there's a lot of serious going on, it does have there are a few times where the humor does kick in. That did get me chuckling here and there. But now I do have a couple of flaws in the movie. Now these are big flaws in the film, but they didn't hold the movie too back for me. For one, introduced this character at the very beginning named Paris, and this guy, you're kind of thinking this character is going somewhere throughout the movie, because he does seem to have. because they do spend a majority of screen time on him a lot, but after the first half, the character doesn't really have like any impact. Like, I thought this character was pretty menacing. I thought he's basically kind of a Joker type of guy, but they didn't really elaborate much on him because the rest of the plot is something completely different. So that does feel a little. It does feel like it's a different movie when that part of the story ends right there. Another problem I have too is I like the idea of an R-rated Batman movie, but I believe me, this film does earn its R rating in 2 parts. And I won't spoil what happens, but other than those 2 parts, the movie doesn't really do much as far as its brutality. You know, it really doesn't up the game any much as far as the actual violence. And the language isn't really there either. So really, I mean, it's kind of a middle R for me. Like, the subject material that they have in the film is very disturbing. It makes you feel like you're in shock of what happened. So I do commend the filmmakers for doing that. It's just that I was expecting a little more of what they showcasing what the Joker can do. Because this is a character who we've seen for years can kill people in so many creative ways, but they don't really do much with that. I've never read the graphic novel, but I can say that I really do enjoy where the story how the story progresses with the Joker and how you do see the backstory surrounding the Joker and how he came to be, which I thought was very fascinating. And I really got into the turmoil that happens with the character. So I do enjoy what they did with the story going with it. It's just that I kind of wish that first half could have made a little bit more sense if they could have wrapped around the story a little better with that first half. But other than that, though, I did enjoy the film, and I am going to give it a 7 out of 10. It was worth checking out in the theater, especially with the introduction that they had with Mark Hamill and how he talked about starting from the beginning with Star Wars and working his way up until The Killing Joke. So that was fun too. For those of you who have read the graphic novel, let me know if there was anything different from the graphic novel, and let me know what you guys thought of the Batman The Killing Joke, and comment below. And thank you guys for watching. If you like what you see here, you can check me out. You can check the rest of my channel out on YouTube, and there will be more reviews coming up here soon.